What's up, everyone, and welcome back to Having Juice with OJ with your host, Oliver. And today I'm here with two of my friends. One you've seen before. We got Yerami Jimenez, and then we've got Adam Brown. And we're just going to talk some football news that's going on right now, along with some projections of future fantasy football. So to start off, we're going to talk about something that's going on right now with the Eagles and their organization and a certain player on their team named Josh Sills. Josh Sills right now is going through an indictment for rape and kidnapping charges. What do you guys think about this? This is something heavy. This is something that the Eagles are going to have to deal with in the locker room with their players, trying to get everyone zoned in for this Super Bowl game.
Yeah, I think not just dealing with the team culture and how the team reacts to it, but how everybody around the organization reacts to it, how everybody in the community reacts to it, how other fans react to it. I think those are all important factors in this, recent controversy. But I think that with the NFL and the steps that they've taken or lack thereof until after the Super Bowl, I think that speaks numerous volumes.
For me, I'd say the Eagles probably just don't want any distractions in their locker rooms. Probably why they haven't made a comment right now. If they weren't in the Super Bowl or about to be in the Super Bowl in 10 days, they probably would have said something. Is that an excuse to not say something for me? Obviously not. I feel like there should have been a public statement made, something to be said from the organization. But I would say the only reason that they haven't is probably because they're playing the Super Bowl in 10 days.
Yeah, I definitely think this is something that's you have to really tread. You have to tread lightly on this. This is something that, if you say too much to the public, it might damage the locker room vibes. Keeping quiet, I think, might not be the answer for me. I think that this sets a precedent for any athlete that's going to be doing or going through something like this. I think that something needs to be done earlier. I think that this has happened a lot before now, even things that aren't in the news that happen to college athletes, them doing things on campus that they're not supposed to be doing, or even in high school to not hurt their scouting and stuff like that. I think this is something that a lot of teams have done and a lot of schools have helped them do and a lot of organizations have done, which I think is not right for the women that are going to have to go through this trials and tribulations. And I think it's it's pretty much just keeping their mouth shut until whenever the team's ready to do it.
And in that sense too, it's a real shame because not just those females who are victims of those crimes, but those families as well. They they have to deal with that. And for this to not be the first time that this has happened in the NFL or in professional sport, but this season alone. Early in the season, we saw with the Bills with their kicker punter, Matt Reza, I think his name is, when he was in college, the scandal that he was in, the acts that he committed with his friends and stuff like that. We last night, Joe Mixon getting a warrant out for his arrest for pulling a gun out on a fan. Can't do things like that as a professional athlete and expect to play this card that you're not going to get in trouble for it just because you have a high status.
Yeah, and that was right before that championship game for them, which is just absolutely insane. He wasn't even thinking maybe I could get in trouble right now. He's thinking I have the money to get out of it. I don't really care.
He's Joe Mixon.
Yeah, and I think that's a bad mindset to have for these athletes.
Yeah, and I definitely say setting the standard of just making these organizations get out ahead of these issues as soon as they happen. Why are we hearing about it what you think about it or whatever you're saying about it 2 weeks, 3 weeks after the fact? You guys should be almost forced. The standard should be that you talk about it as soon as it happens. There should be no couple weeks where you regroup or go play the Super Bowl and come back and talk about it then. Like you said, the families of these people deserve closure on the matter as opposed to your big game.
On a lighter note, Sean Payton just got a big bag. He could get almost as much as Belichick is getting paid right now. I believe Belichick's leading it with 20 mil. I believe Pete Carroll is 15, and then Sean McVay is 14 right now. I think he's set to have about 17 to 20 mil a year. I mean, this guy's getting it all. He's coming out from like being an analyst and like commentator thing after just taking his time off, being like, I don't really want to coach the Saints anymore. Drew Brees isn't here. You know, I might as well leave.
Kind of pulling a Brady, but like as a coach, you know, stepping away, but not really stepping away.
And Gronk, and just like Gronk too. I mean, it's actually kind of funny too how they traded him. Like they had to trade him because his contract went until 2024. So I think it was a first rounder this year, a second rounder next year for Peyton, and then the Saints got the Broncos like third rounder.
Something like that.
Yeah, so yeah, it's so crazy that a coach can get traded in that mannerism.
I didn't even know that coaches could be traded. Did you know that coaches could be traded?
I've never seen that before.
Oh my goodness.
But not to mention the fact that the Broncos like didn't live up to expectations more so than I've probably seen any NFL team do so in this last year. They were supposed to compete. They were supposed to, you know, if you asked any Broncos fan, they would have said they're going to have 10, 11 wins last year. You know, obviously they didn't meet those expectations. But to think, you know, they did that while trading, giving away what was now a top 10 pick.
Yeah.
These are, you know, capital, like this is an organization with no capital right now, and they just gave away more to get a coach. I feel like any other hire probably would have been a better route, just to not lose draft picks. Like they're already just, you know, they're supposed to have the 5th pick. Now they have the 29th pick because they traded away Bradley Chubb. I just don't feel the way trading assets is their best move right now, just to get a coach.
I wholeheartedly agree. They have no draft capital. They just had a terrible season. The culture is probably in shambles right now. You just traded for Russ, you know, trading away your future for Russ, not trading away more of your future for Sean Payton. It's not the greatest of free agent destinations, not as of lately. We know what the Denver Broncos defense is all about. We know what they've been known for. We know what they can do for quarterbacks' careers. But that simply has not been happening since, you know, the end of the Peyton Manning era back in, 2015, 2016. Mm-hmm. So, you know, the Broncos are quickly becoming an organization that's coming into every season with good expectations, and that's just dropping and dropping and dropping, and they're quickly becoming a bottom tier team in the NFL.
Yeah, they had 7 missed playoffs since Super Bowl 50. 7 missed playoffs.
It's been 8 years this year.
DeMeco Ryans allegedly turned down that job as well to take the Texans job instead.
I did see that.
Yeah. I mean, you just look at it and Russ is just past his prime. Russ is past it, I believe. I don't think that he's ever had a line to begin with anyway. I mean, this man was just always running away from people. And those type of QBs, they can't stay in their prime for as long as like a pocket passing QB can as much. So I think that him just going there and now Sean Payton getting added to the equation. Yes, you're like, oh, I have this God coach. Like that's not the reason why you're losing. Like there's a lot of other things. You're paying somebody $250 million that showed you how like much he just doesn't care about the game anymore. I mean, he didn't have any energy. Like old Russ would have been like pissed off or like upset and been like firing away, guns a-blazing, not caring, taking all the hits. Like now
trying
he just
hardest.
Yeah, now he just seems like he just fell out of love with the game. And I'm very confused how that happened.
Not to discredit all of Russ's accomplishments on the Seahawks, but you even just saw Geno Smith pass for over 4,000 yards within the Pete Carroll system. Not going to say it's all Pete Carroll's system, but you can obviously see that's a system that helps quarterbacks too. Yeah. Maybe there was a little bit of like not giving Pete Carroll enough credit when we were giving it all to Russ.
Yeah.
And that's why he was a hot commodity when he was in the trade market last offseason.
Especially with the fact that the Seahawks defense was bottom tier. It was probably the worst in the league. And they were still able to overcome a lot of those expectations. Whereas, you know, the Broncos went below those. And we saw that in week 1 on that Monday night game when the Seahawks beat the Broncos. And everybody's on social media scratching their heads saying, what's going on? How does this happen? And it just continues to spiral. And I feel like with the Broncos specifically, I just remember seeing a lot of the time there was just some stories coming out about their locker room, whether it was, you know, Melvin Gordon playing future music or just the players not being on that Russ Cook wave, you know. I think there's a lot outside of football that was going on with the Broncos. There was a lot of injuries as well, like seeing Javonte go out for the year, seeing a lot of their receivers in and out of the lineup. I still think that Russ is the type of player, well, we've seen him become the type of player that can, you know, just do it with whatever he has. Try to get it done by any means necessary. And I think that this season we just didn't see that energy from him. We didn't see that motivation from him, and the record showed.
Another QB that we didn't see a lot of energy from is Aaron Rodgers. And there's been a lot of talk about him recently. Aaron Rodgers, where is he going to go? There's like leaks coming out from the organization. That's what it seems like. It seems like they're purposely putting out leaks talking about him to kind of like see where his head's at, I guess. And he was just talking about it on a show about how he's like, I have no idea. I haven't talked to the organization. I just heard this out of thin air. It's just there. Where do you see him going? Do you see him staying?
With Aaron Rodgers, it's been like this for a long time. With Aaron, I think unless it comes directly from him, I wouldn't believe it.
Yeah.
You know, he's been on he's gonna retire for the past 2, 3, 4 seasons, goes on to win 2 MVPs, still coming back. You know, the direction that the Green Bay Packers are going in with their youth on their defense, not having much experience on offense, having very young players on offense as well with Jordan Love, Romeo Doubs, and Christian Watson. That's, you know, their young core, AJ Dillon, that's their young core moving into the future. Aaron may say to himself, he doesn't know how he fits into that. How can he compete for a Super Bowl with guys who haven't made the playoffs? And I think some of that blame does fall on Aaron for the way he's conducted himself over the past off seasons, you know, playing that little game where he decides if he's going to retire or not, come back or not. And, you know, that ultimately led to Devontae Adams going to Las Vegas. So
look at that now, too.
That's a whole different story. But, you know, with Aaron, I think that, you know, it has to come from him. I think, you know, I think he still wants to play football. He still wants to compete at the highest level.
I agree.
And if that is with the Green Bay Packers or if that's not, then I think that both of those parties are going to come together and mutually decide if that's the way to go.
You said, speaking of it coming from him, it was funny because I think yesterday I saw a clip of him on the golf course. I don't know what event it was at, but I think it was some kind of celebrity something. He was golfing and they were asking him questions and he responded to one of them with like, I'm not going to the 49ers, that's for sure. Like this was like yesterday.
Yeah, no.
So I think for him to even joke about the prospect of leaving kind of opens the door to maybe it's not set in stone, but I feel like that, you know, if he's willing to joke about the prospect of leaving, maybe that this offseason is finally the offseason where he gets out of here. When you talk about destinations, I think the best one for him would probably be Tampa, especially with Brady going out. I feel like that works perfectly. You got veterans there.
I definitely think he's looking for a veteran squad because or else why wouldn't he just stay with the Packers? That's why I know I've seen things about people being like, oh, Jets. But like that's another young squad you got to deal with and you got to like hone in on. Like, I mean, the Packers defense was just ramping it up. They were just starting to look really, really good. Their young receiving core, very solid. I mean, it would be the same as the Jets. I think that it only would make sense for him to go somewhere like Tampa that has those guys who've been around, who've seen it all. I mean, yeah, I would have to agree that that's one of the only spots I could see him going. I mean, I've heard talks about the Raiders. I think that would be a mistake.
I've also heard talks of Atlanta.
Why?
Why?
That would be the worst thing.
How much better would they be than the Packers were like last year?
They'd be way worse.
I still think they wouldn't even be better.
Yeah.
But I think all the character concerns that were raised over the last like few off seasons and few years with Aaron Rodgers' character and what kind of leader he is, I think those are a little bit out of context when you consider what his organization has done to get him the help. I think that's where you see that like that displeasure, that like him being upset, him not like feel like that's where you see all that in the media being raised from, is more so just the fact that he's upset that his organization hasn't put him in the best position to win. And I think that's why he should move on.
But I feel like it's also warranted too, because, you know, those
It
jokes,
is. That's what I'm saying.
those jokes, you know, I'm not going to the beach. You know, how many years has it been where he's done something like that, where he's talking about riding off into the sunset, never coming back, or going to an island forever and, you know, never playing football. He's always like,
He's just an odd character.
He's definitely an odd character. And two, I feel like he kind of just has a little bit of fun of trying to lead people on it and trying to get them to expect something of him. And then he's not going to do it. That's definitely the type of guy that Aaron Rodgers is. You know, when you expect him to do that one thing, he's definitely just not going to do that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that he does things to like morph the media's head, because he knows that the media is just
They'll just
like,
bite at anything.
They're about it. As soon as they, like, for example, them clipping that golf outing thing about him just being like, oh, not on the 49ers. Like,
Or when they clipped him talking about winning MVPs.
yeah.
When he was asked specifically about MVPs.
About MVPs,
yeah.
And not Super Bowls.
So I'm saying people just like have fun editing this stuff and being like, haha, how am I gonna make Aaron Rodgers look today? And like a lot of the times they make him look like seem like a weirdo.
Like terrible, yeah.
There was no character concerns about Aaron Rodgers, you know, with that Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb squad when he was. We all looked at him as a very good leader then, as like, you know, like what you would want to have as the face of your franchise, the leader of your team. Now all of a sudden that you give him questionable receivers and, you know, questionable weapons on offense for the last however many years, and spending your late first round picks where it would be perfect to grab receivers, and instead we're putting quarterbacks on our bench for 3 years with those picks.
Yeah, only using one first round pick on an offensive player in the past, I don't know how many years. That's when you have a generational quarterback. And I mean generational, like arguably this guy is a top 5 talent at the position all time.
Mhm.
You know,
He's opened the gateway for a lot of people and what they're doing.
Patrick
like
Mahomes
Patty,
is that perfect example. Those guys are identical. You know, I just, it's hard for a quarterback like that to want to continue to keep playing for an organization that he's already played for 17, 18 plus years for. But at the same time, with that competitive and fierce nature and knowing that that window is closing very shortly, that's a decision that he's going to have to make. And I feel like he should be very sincere and thorough and straight up about it and not leave anybody on.
That's definitely an issue, is like old age. And I think that's why he's seeking veteran help. And that, like you said about the preseasons, I definitely think that's a factor. I mean, with these young guys, you got to get after it right away. You got to like automatically get them like chemistry wise on your side. They have to be your boys. They have to be your young goats. You got to go out there. You got to toss to them a bunch. They just didn't. They just didn't do that. They didn't play a lot together. He really just like wrote them off. I remember in the preseason and such, he was just like, oh, none of these dudes can catch. None of these dudes can catch. Well, maybe if you were there, like for a longer
if you had actually shown up to OTAs and done the drills and built the
then
chemistry,
maybe they could catch.
You know, maybe then Christian Watson wouldn't have dropped that first touchdown pass on that first drive of the first game.
That was wide open.
And then who knows, from there, the trajectory of the season is completely different.
Mhm.
You guys, they score that touchdown, maybe the defense comes on the field and they actually feel like they can play that game. And they actually live up to the expectations that they had
Instead of
coming
just
into the
feeling
season.
down about themselves and like, oh, we're done. We're done.
And
we're
it-
done right away.
And from the first drive, it turns into like, oh, look at this new Packers offense with these young receivers who are talented. Instead, it's now these young Packers receivers who suck and drop balls. And
Now they're asking Aaron Rodgers every 2 seconds about why they can't catch. And then he's just like,
And then his facial expression throughout the season just gets worse and worse and worse. And then it just all stems from the quarterback, you know, and not just in Aaron's case, because we see this, you know, very, very often. The quarterback just not buying into his role and being the leader and showing up for the team. When you're the quarterback, you're the leader of the team. You got to show up
like
for the
Russ.
team.
It happened with Russ, right?
Exactly.
Like we were just talking about.
He doesn't do that. He doesn't get the team to buy into him, to get behind him. They're not going to throw their bodies on for that fumble. They're not going to run their hardest for that route when they know that the guy behind the snap isn't doing the same.
I definitely agree. And that segues right into Tom Brady, because that's somebody who always got that locker room behind him. Like, no, it did not matter where he was, what he was doing. I mean, every single person on that field was going to play their heart out for him, because they knew that he wanted to win. He wanted to get that Super Bowl championship. And everybody knew if you followed his direction, you're probably going to get there or close. And now he's gone for a second time, a year apart from each other. I believe it was both February 1st, 2022 and 2023 that he announced his retirement. And this time, it was a short little video, him just sitting there by himself on a beach, like looking like he's ready to retire. He's going to sit right there. I think it's over for him for sure. I think a lot of people are going to troll, be like, like he might come back. But I really do think after everything he's went through off the field, and also what he went through on the field, like they went through struggles on the field, and then he also did off the field. I think he's just like, I'm over it. I feel like last year had a different feel. When he retired, everyone was like, that's it? Like, you were second in MVP voting. Like, you were this, you were that. Like, how are you just gonna end it? I thought it'd be weird for him to end it on a high note. I don't know. I feel like he'd be like, oh, I'm a dog, I'm gonna come back. That's why I felt that last year. What do you guys feel about it this year?
For me, it was kind of just like, you know, the enigma of like, when is this guy going to stop playing, you know? But I thought he said it short. You don't get two dramatic retirements. You only get one. So I would say like, yeah, he's probably going to hang him up for good now. Tough to see the GOAT go, you know? He killed my team, my division for literally my whole life, since before I could watch football. So tough to see him go, but doesn't hurt to see him leave.
The show must go on.
Yep.
Yeah, with Brady, I feel like if he, God forbid, he had won another Super Bowl, because honestly, he would have kept playing. He probably would have kept trying to play until he was 60 if he kept winning. So, I mean, there's been times, you know, he stopped my favorite teams from going ahead and going to a Super Bowl. But, you know, I've learned to respect what Tom Brady is, what Tom Brady stands for. And although there's been polarizing controversies in his career and, you know, in his personal life, you know, I think he's shown what a true professional athlete is supposed to be. You know, a master of their craft, you know, takes care of their business, doesn't let the two intertwine, and does everything for everybody around them. And I think that's what Brady has done for the past 20 years. And going 7 for 23 in Super Bowls in those 23 years, you know, that does say a lot about him, his character, his work ethic, and what he's been able to accomplish in the league.
Yeah, he's someone who everyone who's our age, even older people who've seen like Joe Montana chuck the ball, all those people, they all agree that there's just no doubt about it. This guy's him. He's done the work. He's shown the work. I mean, he's done it with 2 different teams now. I think that was the biggest thing. I remember as soon as he was leaving and going to the Bucs, everyone was like, was it Bill or was it Tom? And like, come on, did you not just watch all those years that I watched? Because I didn't have that feeling at all. I was like, I mean, it can be both. Like, you can have a great coach and a great QB. I think it came down to the great QB, I would have to say. And Belichick, he deserves his praise 100%. He's done a lot for them and all those Super Bowls. But when you've got a great QB like that everyone believes is great, and you're going to do well, just like we've seen with these other QBs that might be great, but maybe not everyone's sold on them being great for that team. And I think that's been shown now in a couple different instances. So,
I'd say for me, at least, like I'd say one, I just want to say, like, touch on the Brady thing again. Like, let's honestly take a moment to, like, I'm truly grateful for the fact that I got to watch this guy for like my whole time growing up. Like, it really is like a tough send off, honestly, not to like think about him in the playoffs every year and like stuff like that. Like, even this year he went 8-9, just like playoffs.
of course.
Literally.
On the last game, of course. Yeah, no, it's kind of similar to like LeBron right now, as he's getting like closer to the scoring record too. You know, it's kind of like,
how many more points is it? I think it's like
my God,
50.
less. It has to be less than 50 at this point. He's getting there. He's gonna within the next week, he's getting there.
By the time this comes out, probably.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's like the same type of emotion though. We see these guys who have been, almost perfect for almost the entirety of our lives. And to see them, finally give that up and finally walk away kind of is a little hard, because that's kind of just like our life. That's all we've really known is
Literally.
Tom Brady being the best quarterback in the NFL. And now that's not going to happen. Now it's time for Mahomes or Allen or Burrow or Hurts. Time for one of them to actually become the face of the league.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little tough, yeah, but it's going to be exciting for years to come.
Those guys definitely set the standard on and off the field for both of their respective leagues, for sure.
Well, viewers, comment down below and let us know who you think will be the next GOAT, whether it be Patty Mahomes, whether it be Joe Burr, whether it be Josh Allen. Let us know below and like and subscribe, and we'll be right back. What's good, everyone, and welcome back to Heaven Juice with OJ at USALA Media. We are here again with Adam and Jeremy, and now we're going to talk a lot of fantasy football projections. This is something we've been looking forward to talking about. This is something I look forward to as soon as the season ends, especially because I came in second to last this year. And there's a lot of interesting things happening within free agency, within organizations themselves, a lot of new running backs, a lot of new wide receivers. So let's talk some shop. Jay Jettas is my first topic of conversation that I wanted to bring up. Not only is he the best wide receiver in the league, there's no argument about that. Is he going to go top 2 in fantasy?
For me right now, I lean towards him honestly being the number 1 overall pick in next year's drafts. I think it's hard to deny a guy who's had 1,500 yards his first 3 years in each of the first 3 years. I think, yeah, and with all the uncertainty with which running back's going to go, they're all free agents, Saquon, McCaffrey, all these guys are free agents. I think a safe pick is the best receiver in the league.
Yeah, especially after we've seen a year where the receivers just completely dominated, not just with their stats and their points, but just with their consistency and their ability to stay healthy. Justin Jefferson played in every single game this year. And I think at the highest average draft position, I think he was the player to play the most games. Because guys around him you got JT, you got Eckler, you got CMC, you got Cup. Those guys all missed time at one point or another. Justin Jefferson has remained the one consistent for the past 3 seasons. And, we were talking about it in the car yesterday. A lot of people are probably still going to go into their drafts next year with that running back heavy strategy, taking those top running backs 1, 2, 3. But I definitely think that Jefferson is the first wide receiver off the board, and he should definitely be picked in the 2 to 4 range. So that on average, I think he's going to be picked from 2 to 4.
So you have that number 1 overall pick, but Jettas is not a person. Jettas is not alive because you said you wanted number 1. He's not a person. He's not alive anymore. Goodbye. Who are you taking?
Christian McCaffrey for sure.
Has to be, right?
Regardless of team. There's no way he doesn't end up on like a playoff contending team next year. He's not going to go to a bad team.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely Christian McCaffrey.
Mm-hmm.
Christian McCaffrey is a solid pick, but this guy has this one player has been an absolute a beast incarnate the past 2 seasons with his young quarterback, with his great talented wide receivers. This guy, Austin Eckler, is a machine. He's a machine. He scores touchdowns like no other. He catches the ball like no other. And he runs through defenders like no other. He can do everything on the football field at such a high and efficient level that he's won them games on his own so many times. He's won me a lot of weeks on his own a lot of the times. And if Jettas isn't there, I got the 101. I think I'm slamming Eckler, especially after the way the Chargers started out this year. And a lot of people who did have Eckler were panicking, thinking that he wasn't going to finish even as a top 12 running back. He just needed to get the gears moving, and he started moving. So I definitely would take Eckler.
Would you not be worried about his age? Because we've talked about over 27 club, and I think he's pushing 31 right now.
Yeah, he's on the older side, but I think his skill set and his offseason regimen and what he does allows for him to continue, playing at the level that he does. And if we are going to talk about running backs at the age of 27, which is typically the age where they fall off, we got to think about other guys like CMC, like Derrick Henry, like Aaron Jones, like Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook's getting up there, Joe Mixon's getting up there. All these guys that we've been watching play and drafting on our teams for the past 3, 4, 5 years, they're all getting up there in age, but they're still finishing in the top 12 running back range. So could it be that they're not falling off, or could it be that, we just have so many talented generational backs in our league right now? I'm not too sure, but I still definitely would lean and trust Eckler until I see anything otherwise.
I definitely agree. I think also the fact that we've been talking about placement of these running backs and where they are, I think he's someone that he's there. He's there for the Chargers. He's going to be there. I think that sets him in stone. I think no matter what, a lot of people are still going to grab CMC over him. Eckler has it. I mean, he takes the cake, I think, in terms of knowing what to expect, and also just every single game you worry about CMC getting injured. I mean, I had him on my fantasy keeper league team for the last 3 years, and it's been brutal to be leaning on your number 1 overall pick who's just not there. And then this year, I mean, it feels like he was faking injuries to get away from that team, because that team was god awful. Maybe he was, who knows? That's a conspiracy. But then he just goes to the Niners and just eats up Debo's lunch money, like just eats it up. He just took his job. I mean, Debo wanted to be a wide receiver, but he went in and he took his job and he took his production too, which I think is a big thing, because just like Eckler, he's a receiving back. He's a receiving back, and he's a hard, like hard runner.
I'd say some of the Debo production was probably more from the quarterback controversy than the, quarterback constantly changing hands than I'd say, CMC's presence. That, and Ayuk was healthy and had a good full season. So I'm not going to take away from Debo for that. But back to it, we were talking about Eckler, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like, they're probably going to get other running backs involved at some point, with this guy being 31. At the same time, Justin Herbert, he did almost break the record for attempts last year. He
tosses all the time.
Yeah, he averages high 30s, low 40s and attempts per game. And considering, then on top of that, Eckler averages, 10 targets a game, damn near. I get it, but at 31, I'd look to other running backs like CMC.
But also with Eckler, we kind of did see his role kind of get a little bit reduced this year. We did see the Chargers, have games where they had two running back and 3 running back man schemes, where Austin Eckler wasn't getting that many touches. He wasn't getting the 6, 7, 8 targets a game on top of the 15, 16, 17 carries or upwards of 20 carries. We were seeing a lot of that go to Joshua Kelly sometimes. And, we're probably going to continue to see that as, Joshua Kelly gets older and better, as Eckler gets, older and, starts to decline, as Justin Herbert gets a lot better. I still have a lot of faith in a guy who's been showing time and time again even if he suffers an injury here or there, he's able to bounce back from it relatively quickly, and is still able to play at a very high level.
Somebody else who he was a hot commodity going into this year is Jonathan Taylor. I mean, people had high hopes for that Colts team and also him, because last year he just absolutely blew it out the water, and I think his stock's going down. I think that he could potentially be a late round, first round pick. I think if you're in a 10-man league, maybe even an 8-man league, I think he could go very early second round.
I'd argue he could fall even farther than that. He might get the Chubb treatment, where he's getting picked middle of the second, beginning of the third round. And if you're that guy that, takes Jamar Chase in the first, and you come back and you're able to get a guy like Kenneth Walker, Breece Hall in the second, and then JT sitting there in the third. A lot of teams were able to make it far because they were able to do things like that, and they got Nick Chubb in the third. Getting Justin Jefferson and Aaron Jones, and then getting Nick Chubb. Those running backs that have bad years, get hurt, kind of fall off from their top 3, top 8, whatever status. A lot of people tend to just give up on them, and those who are patient, those who understand how not just injuries work, but how systems and offenses, how those work and how those project to work. Jonathan Taylor that's going to be dependent on where Jonathan Taylor goes, whether it's the end of the first or, close to the third.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I would expect him to go that Saquon Barkley, Nick Chubb range last year, end of the second, beginning of the third. People who do draft him a little bit earlier than that might be rewarded with a huge season. I think depending more so on what Indy does in the offseason, and if they get a capable quarterback to be able to man that offense, I think that's that changes his value a lot if they have an offense that can actually ball. Because last year we saw guys like Sam Ehlinger starting games at quarterback for them. It's not going to work out with that guy.
Michael Morans, Sam Ehlinger. Yeah, even with that statement of just getting a better quarterback to run that offense, you would think that with their lack of passing offense this year, they would rely a lot on JT, and they did, even when he was hurt, which I think kind of messed him up, because there were times I feel like, and I could be right or wrong, but I feel like there was a game in the beginning of the season where I feel like he kind of tweaked his ankle, and I think he ended up coming back in the game and ended up making his ankle worse. I could be right or wrong, but I think ever since then he's had that nagging ankle injury for like the entire season.
And he's had to do a lot for that team the entire season. He had to pull a lot of weight. I mean, like you said, their QB situation was just not it. I mean, they did not have one. Nothing was working. They couldn't get these wins. So, I mean, they're going to rely heavy on him. And it did seem like he really wasn't like he was last year, as explosive. Like last year, he felt super explosive, dominant. You saw him every single game. I mean, not in the beginning of the season. Everyone thought this year, too, that this would happen. They're like, no, well, he didn't get ready until like week 4, week 5, whatever. Then he started snapping. Everyone was like anticipating that snap, and then it just never happened.
He had that one good game, like 26 points or something, like week 10 or something.
Yeah,
everybody's
way
like,
later.
He's back. And a lot of people fell for it, including myself. I ended up trading for him in one of my leagues. But hey, you win some, you lose some. You got to take risks like that on a player like JT, who can
big time player.
He can break fantasy football. Sometimes you got to take swings, and it didn't pan out this year, but who knows? Maybe it can next year. Same thing with a guy like Javonte Williams.
I think a lot of people were clinging to that hope of like, I just drafted this guy literally first overall in my league. I don't want him to, be a complete bust, but I think last year was kind of a wash for him. I think you'll be rewarded if you draft him slightly above projections next year. Take a middle of the second. If he plays over 15 games, you'll definitely get your value.
I agree. And then someone who I think took a lot of shape this year was Saquon. I think Saquon showed this is the first time since his injury, honestly, where I've seen old Saquon. It feels like he has a lot of more energy behind him. He feels like he's able to run past people now. I feel like for a while he'd always be getting tripped up. He'd get a couple yards, bang, you've got like some like linebacker barely touching him and he's falling. I feel like now he's ripping through those holes. He's getting those yards. He's gaining a lot of speed as he runs. So what do you guys project him for fantasy?
For me, I'm a little bit partial, a little bit biased. Not because I'm a Giants fan. I'm just a big Saquon fan. But after two season-ending injuries, was it that he's had so far in his career? We finally get to see him back. I would say that he's probably the third running back on my board after Christian McCaffrey and Eckler. I'd put him as that 7th, 8th pick, 6th, 7th, 8th pick, but it's also tough because is he on the Giants next year? Where is he?
I think he will be. I think he will be. I think we can count on that. But again, like you said, who knows?
Yeah, I think first, I do think Saquon should and will stay in New York. That's his team. And then I also agree with you, Adam. I think Saquon is right there, right outside of the top two at 3, 4, 5. It also depends on how you want to draft your team, because you can go running back heavy, you can go wide receiver heavy, and if you're in that middle of the first round, it's honestly one of the tougher spots to be in.
It is,
rather than like the first 4 picks or like the 9 through 12 picks, because with those
so
first 4
options.
picks, you can really pick the best player, whoever you want. You got that option. Once you get to 5, 6, 7, 8, there's the best players still, but that's gonna shape out how you draft the rest of the way a lot of the times. So if you're gonna be taking a Saquon, in that 5 to 8 range, you got to be ready to make that decision of, do you want to keep going running back? Do you want to keep going wide receiver? And then with a guy like Saquon, who has an injury history, it's just personally, if I'm in that range and I take Saquon, I'm kind of hesitant to take a receiver, because if Saquon gets hurt, then I'm going to be out of a top tier running back. So, a lot of, scheming, a lot of thinking needs to go into it. But I think Saquon is definitely a mid to late first round pick. I could see him moving up as we find out like how situations are going to play out for other backs around the league. But yeah, for sure, have him in the mid to late round.
I definitely think the middle of the round is like very hard to draft, because you truly could go multiple different ways with it. I mean, if you're 5, 6, 7, I'm thinking like Tyreek, I'm thinking like Jamar, you're thinking like that. Cooper. You've got those right there, 3, 5, 6, 7. And those are amazing players. I mean, those are people you can count on. But it all depends on how you like to draft. I mean, you've got the first 3 rounds are the most crucial rounds, I believe, on like deciding on what your team's going to look like. I mean, if you do like 2 running backs, a wide receiver, then like you're probably going to start being running back heavy in your bench. And then if you start going wide receivers more, I mean, you grab Jettas, and then you go down and you get Devontae, and then you got all this, like now you're like, oh, I need to make sure I can get like young running backs. So then you're looking at people, like you're hoping that people sleep on all those younger running backs, because you're not going to get those older guys. And for example, some of those younger guys are Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker. And those are 2 people that I think, just like last year, I wanted to grab both. I wanted to grab one or the other, but I waited a little bit too long, just like a little bit too long, like a round too long. And that really killed me, because I think they're both studs. I think they're great to have in a keeper league, especially because they're so young. And they're entertaining to watch. They put up the points. They're going to get you those yards and those touchdowns. And it's going to be interesting to see where people put them this year. I think they're going to be second rounders. I think they could be third, but I do like them early.
Etienne and Rashad White are 2 other young backs who I think, have shown those flashes of being very, very good running backs, not
ETN,
only in the
sure.
league, but as fantasy options. You know, guys that can catch the ball, guys who can have prominent roles in their offenses. Those two, ETN and White, are also, you know, amazing young stars. With Breece Hall, you already know, since like last offseason, I was huge on Breece Hall. I was taking Breece Hall in almost every single draft that I had. I was taking him in the 3rd round, in the 4th round, just because I knew he was going around that mid 4th round, like beginning of 5th. So I knew I just wanted to grab him. That was somebody I needed on my team.
He didn't even have a picture on his profile for the draft. No picture.
Until after like the first game, he didn't have a picture on his profile. And, you know, luckily I got him in one of our keeper leagues. But the thing with Breece Hall right now is, you know, he's coming off that knee injury. He's coming off surgery.
It's hard.
It's so hard to trust a running back coming off of a season-ending injury.
Any leg injury for a running back is just like detrimental to what's to come for the next year.
And then at the same time, if you think about it like that, though, if you think about how many running backs out there have that ceiling of being, you know, a top 12, a top 5 running back, but aren't injury prone or haven't had a significant injury, it's very, very few and thin of them. So at that point, a lot of people are just going to have to take shots, take risks on players who are possibly going to get hurt.
But in terms of Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker, I'd say probably I love Kenneth Walker. I think there's no way in every league he'll probably be about a 2nd round pick.
Yeah.
But, you know, Breece Hall has injury concerns. I doubt his draft placement from last year, because I'm pretty sure, like I said, he was a 4th, 5th round pick last year.
He was.
I bet probably ends up being around a 4th round pick next year too, because how do you draft a guy that was a rookie, played, you know, not even 5-6 games, and then tore his ACL?
Yeah, tore his ACL.
It's very hard to do. I mean, you really got to put your eggs in one basket.
Is even expected to be ready to go by the start of the season? Is that even like?
I'm almost positive, yes, but it could be like, again, you could have like
A setback.
Yeah, a setback that right there. It could be like, oh, he'll be in week 4 now.
Yeah, so
he's gonna go on the IR. That's very true. Also,
Love Kenneth Walker though.
I do too. I mean, he's an absolute beast.
End of the 2nd round.
Amazing. He's so good. Yeah, with Breece, I think, and not just with Breece, honestly, with any player who has like an injury going into the off season, or injures himself in the off season, or had an injury during the season, like unless you see reports or like see footage of them actually like practicing or like being 100%, me personally, I'm gonna stay away from drafting those types of players, even though they're high risk, high reward. I think that overall consistency throughout the season is much more necessary to put yourself in a place to win the league.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and that kind of shows with like every single year there's a new player that you have to worry about their injury from the year before. For example, I believe this year an example is Cooper Kupp. I mean, he's a stud. We all know this. He's a beast. He's going to do his thing, but now he's got a bad injury. And things like that you can't really overlook, and you just said that. But I feel like he's going to be one of those players that everyone overlooks it and lets it happen. And I still think he's going to go very, very early. But like you said, those injuries, you never know what's going to happen with those. And right now, I know for a fact he's going 1st round. I mean, I know that for a fact. It's not going to be early. I say it's going to be 8, 9. But everyone's going to respect his game, even though he's got a bad injury. What do we think about that?
I still see Cooper Kupp getting drafted above the likes of, you know, CeeDee Lamb, AJ Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, T. Higgins. I think people are concretely, definitively 100% taking Cooper Kupp over them. If, you know, you're in the 2nd round and you got to choose between one of those guys, I think they're definitely Kupp. And, you know, you can't go wrong with that.
Yeah, I'd say the only guy out of that list that I disagree with is probably AJ Brown,
baby.
But that's just tough because, you know, 100 yards. Other than that, though, who were you talking about? What player?
T. Higgins, CD,
Yeah.
Amara.
Well, it's really just
Cooper.
about like who's your guys' wide receiver 2. We all think Justin Jefferson's a wide receiver 1. Who's wide receiver 2?
I would
Is it
probably,
Cooper Kupp? For me, it's probably
honestly, I kind of have to say Tyreek. I think Tyreek Hill is, to me, I think a lot of people might throw Jamar there, especially because you have such an amazing QB in Joe Burrow that you know he's going to get the ball. As long as he stays healthy, he's going to get the ball. But I would still pick Tyreek Hill just because he's shown it for longer. I mean, he even just shown it with a QB that I honestly don't really think is one of the best QBs in the league. So he's shown it, and he has another wide receiver 1 on his own team, Jalen Waddle, and he still was putting up those yards and getting those touchdowns. So I would put him at my 2.
for me, I'd say my wide receiver 2, honestly, is Stephon Diggs, and then Jamar Chase, then Tyreek Hill. And that's how I'd round out my like top 4. And then honestly, Cooper Kupp at 5. That's how I'd round out my top 5.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did Devontae Adams just like fall off a cliff and die? Because
I mean, with no QB right now, he might as well.
You could have my little sister throwing rocks at him, and he's catching him.
No, you're right. You're right.
Like
Top 5 though.
so Devontae Adams is the best wide receiver in the league. Like Justin Jefferson, yeah, he's up there. He's gonna take over. But until he retires, Devontae Adams is the best wide receiver. We know this. We know what he does with just his route running. It's like got me stumbling up in my speeches because he's such a talented generational player. He's such a good wide receiver, such a good route runner, so clean, so slick with everything that he does. You get him a middle tier quarterback. I mean, it's Vegas, so they're gonna end up with something. You got Darren Waller, you got Hunter Renfrow, you got other weapons that can distract away from Devontae Adams, leading him to be a top option yet again. And that's a player who I think is going to fall in drafts, and you might even be able to get him mid-second, maybe even the 3rd as well.
I agree that he's going to drop solely only because of this QB situation, I think, is why he's dropping. I project him to go like the very last pick of the first round. That's what I would say. That's a place that I had some people maybe deciding to take JT or Nick Chubb. And I could see people flipping the switch and be like, you know what, actually, he's a dog. I've remembered this. It came to my fruition, and he's there. I'm grabbing him. But I definitely think for most people, they're just going to overlook it, especially casuals that don't really like follow up with the sports talk. They're just like, oh, well, they have no QB, so he must be trash next year. So I think that's going to be an interesting take. But you said wide receiver 2. Would you take him if you're not picking a running back and Jay Jettis is gone then?
I'm not picking a running back. Jay Jettis, and Jay Jettis is the only wide receiver gone?
Yeah, he's gone. And you need your wide receiver too.
Who's your second wide receiver off the board?
Who you picking?
Wow, if I don't know what's going on with Vegas.
Yeah.
Okay, if I don't know what's
We're
going on.
doing it right now.
If I don't know what's
We're
going on
drafting.
with Vegas, I can't do that.
Can't.
I can't do
Right.
that if I don't know what's going on with Vegas.
Well, by the time we draft,
Then
we're
will
definitely gonna know by then.
And by then I'm
we
also gonna have an idea of the range that he's going in. So I could probably play my cards right and still end up getting him in the 2nd and the 3rd. But if we're talking about right now, Tyreek's definitely up there. Stephon's definitely up there. We should have saw a lot more from CD. We really should have seen a lot more from him in the Cowboys. That was kind of a disappointment.
That was a disappointment.
But I honestly, it's hard for me because those were honestly my next 2 receivers were Steph and Tyreek. I got Jamar after him, but that's just because, I feel like aside from some games he's hurt and doesn't play, in other games it's for T. Higgins, You know how it is with the Bengals. Some games it's for T. Higgins, some games for Jamar Chase, some games for Joe Mixon. But we've seen Tyreek do things that, haven't really been done before by a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And that was with another top 8 wide receiver on his team, top 10 in Jalen Waddle. And there are multiple teams. There's 5 teams or so that had 2 wide receivers in the top 24. But I think that, with his volume, his targets, and the consistency of his targets, because we see games where Stephon Diggs has 12, 13 targets, but that only happens 2 or 3 times a year. We see Tyreek Hill get 10 plus targets 6 weeks in a row. And even without the touchdown, he'll catch more than 50% of that and amass 100 yards because he's that good before and after the catch.
Yeah, I was about to say both.
That good before and after the catch. There's not many wide receivers that are good before and after the catch the way that he is, and with his speed. Well, if you include his speed, there's nobody. But yeah, I'm kind of, convincing myself into taking Tyreek now. So I'd probably go Tyreek.
You guys are Tyreek. I personally would go Stephon Diggs just because.
I think I have like a little bit of resentment toward that man, Stephon Diggs, I think. As you guys would know this. I just have a little bit of resentment for this guy. And I also just, after further review, just don't like the Bills anymore. I don't know what happened. My mindset has changed. I'm a new man. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm drafting no Bills players this year. I don't like it. I'm not doing it. Except for Josh Allen.
I personally would never tell anybody where Josh Allen goes in drafts. I would never tell anybody to draft a quarterback that early. Never.
No, and he always will be. They will, like, from now on, especially even last year, he's going to be a top pick for some reason.
Somebody's always going to draft him in the first round.
Because
it's
of
like
the
Patty Mahomes was like that.
It's because of the rushing upside. It's definitely because of the rushing upside. If he's the quarterback, he runs for 40, 50 yards a game and gets a touchdown. That's 10 extra points right there alone. And if he's not having a good throwing game, those 10 extra points could go a long way.
Yeah.
I saw a lot this year. In the 3rd round, we were seeing Josh Allen go. In the 4th round, we were seeing Justin Herbert go, who finished as the QB 11.
Yeah.
And then in the 5th round, we were seeing Patrick Mahomes go, who finished as the number 1 overall player. So with quarterback, you got to be careful with that, because if you're going to reach early, you got to reach on the right one. You can't, reach on the number 11 QB with your 4th pick, because you're not setting yourself up for a championship run that way. And with Mahomes, but I think between Mahomes and Allen, I think they finished 1 and 2 the past 3-4 years.
Yep.
So,
he's a good pick.
That's another reason why, Josh Allen is going to continuously get taken at the end of the 3rd, middle of the 3rd.
And then to wrap this all up, I'm going to have us each say our first round predictions. We're in a 10-man league.
10-man league.
10-man league. I need your 10 right away. So mine are, I'm taking Jay Jettas. I do not care about my running backs anymore. And then CMC, taking him number 2, taking Eckler 3, and then I'm doing Saquon, then I'm going Tyreek, then I'm going Stephon, Cooper, Henry, Jamar, Kelsey.
You should name 12 players or 10?
Did I?
Yeah,
12. We'll do 12 now. Now we're in a 12-man league.
All right.
Whatever.
It's a little tougher. All right. I guess I'll go. So I'm going to go 1 overall. I'm going to go Justin Jefferson, like I said. 2nd, I'm going to go Christian McCaffrey. 3rd, I'm going to take him a little high just because I think he's going to be so consistent this year. I'm going to take Stephon Diggs 3, Austin Eckler 4, Saquon 5, Jamar Chase 6, Tyreek Hill 7.
Starting to rethink things.
This is where it gets hard.
This is where it's like really up to this is where it's like not even, it's tough.
Can't take.
I'd probably go this is the range where I'd put, the last 3-4 picks of it. I'd probably put Cooper Kupp in there. I'd probably put Nick Chubb in there and AJ Brown in there.
I think Nick Chubb really snaps this year. I definitely agree with that one.
I'm gonna put AJ Brown and Devontae Adams to wrap it up.
Love it.
Now, I'm not saying he's gonna be in my top 12.
Yeah.
But I definitely can see a lot of people taking Josh Jacobs in the 1st round. And
That's
telling you
iffy
right-
pick.
I'm
What
telling
team?
you right now. No, wait. I'm telling you right now. If you play in a league with me and you want to take Josh Jacobs in the first round, by any means, please do so. You got it. You got it. 100%. You got it.
First overall pick right there, Josh Jacobs.
Josh Jacobs, league winner.
Lock it in.
Yeah. So first overall, you know, we got to do it. We got to go Jay Jettas. We got to go Jay
It's a
Jettas.
consensus right now.
The consistency.
Yes, you did.
The consistency of the wide receiver position this year, I think it was too important. It was too crucial. It was too clutch.
Wide receivers were way better off. Like you were way better off having a wide receiver this year.
I think,
Health-wise too.
I think if you had a wide receiver, that played at least 15 games versus a running back that played, max 16 games, I think the numbers are still similar.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I got to go Justin Jefferson first. 2, I'm going to go CMC. 3, I'm going to go Saquon. 4, I think that's where you can put Eckler. 5, Tyreek. I think you go 6. So 6, 7, 8 would be, Stephon, Chubb, Derrick Henry, Kelsey. Kelsey's a top 10 pick. If you have,
He honestly should be.
if you have 9 to
I
10
forgot
He's
to
the
name him.
only tight end that should be picked in any round.
in the
Yeah.
first,
In any round.
yeah.
Just
in the
never
first,
take a
in
tight
the first
end
draft, in the first draft, you should only pick Travis Kelsey as your tight end. So yeah, 9 Travis. I said Derrick Henry. I'm gonna take a swinger here. I can see a guy like Amon-Ra getting picked in first.
Amon-Ra has proven a little bit, and Jared Goff has been looking solid.
And they get a couple more pieces on that Lions offense. You got Jameson.
They're young.
You got Jameson getting ready to play his first season, like full season.
I think he's gonna do
and
well.
we've seen some dog stuff out of Jameson. So, as long as Amon-Ra can, keep his little ankle healthy, he'll be fine.
Him over Devontae Adams and AJ Brown?
I think I can see some people doing that.
Okay.
Yeah. But I was going to say Amon-Ra and AJ Brown, like 10, 11 right there. And then between Devontae and Cooper Kupp, I think those two are definitely like,
There's some studs.
they're
this year.
1 to
I started
2.
thinking
They're
about
1 to 2 picks within each other. So I'd probably go all right, so 9, 10, 11 would be Kelsey, AJ Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown in that order. In any order. And then 12 would probably be between Kupp, Devontae, and then I would say, how do we feel about a guy like Mixon? A guy like Mixon.
I don't really
who
like
was-
it that much.
Hey, man.
I don't either. I'm
Maybe not.
bigger on like Dalvin Cook than him.
Whoa.
Dalvin Cook over
Right.
Joe Mixon?
Yo, no way.
Joe Mixon over Dalvin Cook? I take Dalvin Cook.
I think I gotta go
After
down.
this,
No bias.
No bias?
No
I don't
bias.
know, man. Joe Mixon has had
Yes, we'll
has
see.
had a pretty good season.
He did have a good season.
He's had a
He did.
pretty good season, and the Bengals offense continues to only get better. And when you have a bell cow running back like Joe Mixon, and you have a high firing powered offense like the Bengals, where Joe Burrow is gonna be slinging the rock so many times that his arm might fall off. Joe Mixon might step up there as that guy. But if not, we might take that Devontae or Cooper Kupp for sure.
I think there's a lot of value in whatever rookie running back the Bengals inevitably draft this year. Not big on Mixon, and P. Ryan's a free agent.
All right, so that concludes our episode. Thank you guys so much for coming here and talking shop. It was amazing. I think we have some good fantasy projections. So everyone go comment below your top 5 fantasy picks for this year, and we'll comment back and let you know how we feel about them. And see you next week.